Hey, an Inmendham video. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Anyway, yeah, wayward guy made a video, and it's sort of on one of my subjects. Say that for later. Broken brake. No, I don't think I will say that actually. Anyway, cold. So anyway, made a video sort of on the subject of this value thing, objective value, sort of. Like there's some sort of reason to be concerned about, establishing and having any confidence in definitions, whether they be yours or somebody else's or whatever. All right, two arguments. The first argument used was autonomy. You brought that up like it means something. It's like a nothing word. He values it. Okay, well, good for you. There's no reason to. Obviously, a retard's autonomy is worth nothing. Someone who's wrong, it's worth nothing. There's nothing. If we were rats, you'd have no problem making these judgments. If we were wildebeest, if we were platypuses, if we were any other organism but humans, you'd have no problem establishing a statement about the functionality of some event going on in their lives, the fact of it, what it means, what it represents, blah blah blah, cost effectiveness, let's say. You just wouldn't. You'd be able to say, oh, that's crazy. And even if I change the value numbers a little, let's just say we talk about airplane crashes, and I instead of, one every 100,000 miles or whatever somebody dies, let's make it one every 5 miles. The plane flies, somebody dies. All of a sudden, plane travel doesn't make too much sense anymore, right? There's a certain number I could go up to. I don't know what it has to be. It seems to me there's no number that's the right number. But there's a certain amount of paralyzed children we will permit for the existence of football. Yeah, we'll paralyze kids for it. Yay! But there's a certain number. If I go there, if I raise the number to a certain number, then all of a sudden people say, ooh, that's a stupid thing to be doing. And they're right. Okay? Just they're right late. And so I guess see, the two arguments crashed right into each other. Autonomy doesn't mean anything. It's just an expression of individual subjective preference or something. It just doesn't mean anything. You want the best judgment applied. It's like you don't like anybody build a nuclear power plant, right? You don't sit there and say, well, they have their autonomy and they may do it their own way. No, there's qualified and unqualified. And the same goes for opinions on value. So it matters not, if somebody says, run me over with a steamroller, you have to wonder whether they're thinking right, whether they really are thinking correctly. So come on, really slowly, like an inch an hour. Yeah, come on. We know that person wouldn't be thinking right. People just get so gooey about this individualism shit, and I think, logically we can understand that it's all just, it has to be judged by the same standards we judge everything else, cheffery, any skill, any ability. Logic is also one of these things. You're either good at it or you suck at it. And you don't have a right to suck at it when you're playing a game that involves other people. We don't give people rights to be bad drivers, and then we just say, go ahead, be a bad driver. No, we obligate them to meet a certain minimum standard. And whether we should be able to establish minimums or whether we should be able to establish maximums might be an interesting question. And how we do that. there's the subject for the argument, right? I mean, how many kids have to get paralyzed before we stop playing football? Stop subsidizing it anyway. Stop publicly endorsing it. Stop treating it like it's not a vice, which it is. Stop treating it like a privileged vice. How many? And is that number just arbitrary? Is it made of no logic whatsoever? Or is it made up of some sort of notional judgment? Some sort of very simplistic, not very thoughtful, certainly not scientific judgment being applied. They'll feel that it's right. Feel the right number of paralyzed kids. They'll search for it in their feelings. This sucks. Yeah, I ain't gonna fix it today. It's cold out here, so I'm gonna have to navigate very carefully here. Oh, this is horrid. Yeah, I hate jumping. It's not that I used to be an excellent jumper. But years ago I did have the stroke thing, and I just can't. It's just hard to trust my leg. You just don't know what it's going to do. It usually does the right thing, but I just can't know it. So it spooks me a little. Oh, God. I don't know whether I got like a blood sugar problem or something. I am so not fucking right still. I've been fighting this for like 2 years. I got this weird feeling behind my eyes. Like they want to leave. They want to leave the building. It's like I've had an allergy attack for 2 years. I just can't get rid of this. Just this mild flu-like syndrome. And I've been treated for Lyme and all that shit already. I mean, I did have Lyme and fixed that. Should have. But at least something's just... something still got a hold of me. Some invader. Anyway, age. Anyway, when you think about that. So back to the value thing. So what we're having a subjective conversation about is what the objective line is. Obviously we can't show people a picture of value realistically. What the exact quantifiables are. Obviously, I think a good argument can be made that all suffering is wasted suffering, because the accomplishments of satisfaction are incredibly redundant, fleeting, and of trivial weight, compared to the worst case scenarios. So again, this, you talk about autonomy, and you seem to have some sensitivity to this idea of imposing on others. Isn't that where it gets very tricky? When you're getting the gain and somebody else is getting the pain. Isn't that when our numbers get funky? If one kid gets paralyzed playing football, if it's your kid, one's too many, right? One is going to be way too many. One is going to be like, holy shit, why did I let that go on? How stupid could I fucking be? I risked my kid's health for that. I risked well-being for that. So I'm just saying, the vision thing, seeing it, does require a very hard to attain objective perspective, because we are subjective, and we do think we're playing a cooler game than the other losers. Again, if I had to finance a a mission to Mars, and I'm going to put a lot of jerks on the ship, I'm going to say fuck it. If no one's cool's going, screw it, right? So I mean, I could pick 10 people, and people would just say, yeah, well, I ain't gonna finance that. Whatever her name is, sloppy baby or fatty greasy or that spaghetti eating kid. Whatever, people are gonna send them to Mars. As a reality show for $1 billion. So they can fry some spaghetti on Mars. Fuck that. It just isn't. So, nicking this all down to what's psychology talking and what's logic is the tricky part. It's the tricky part for the conversation. It actually isn't that tricky when you start thinking about it and you start realizing that almost all of your fantasies of utopia and perfection somehow need you in them. Because if you're not in them, they're not nearly as needed or cool or desirable. Nobody else does it. Nobody eats as good as you. Nobody fucks as good as you. Nobody does anything as good as you, right? Even when you do it badly, you're somehow doing it better than them. So let's not, let's not be cued to the fact that, people live on this ego crap, and it's their own unsatisfied and harping incompleteness that compels them to think there's purpose in any pain. It's only an ego thing. It's only a projection of value. No actual value in the space. None. No reason for me to actually think there's a purpose to go there. It's only desire. Hunger moves us to the food, to the dinner table. The food is not intrinsically food-ish. Yeah, we make it food with our desire. So if you go by that standard, none of it's worth any of it. Yeah, none of it's worth any of it. Yeah, that's good enough. None of it is worth any of it. Yeah, I'll go with that. And certainly personal opinions are not sacrosanct. Some person's judgment that they should be immune, or what they deserve, or what they just, you can't make that an individual thing. There's a truth to it. There's a maximization of utility. You can't call yourself a utilitarian and not recognize that utility is maximizable, that there is a perfect answer to every dilemma. You may not be able to access it, you may not be able to gain knowledge of it, just like the perfect chess strategy, but it's there. It's there to be played if you can find it. And that's all utilitarians will tell you, is that I'll say that yes, there is a perfect truth, a perfect solution to every questionable dilemma, every shall I or shalln't I dilemma. There is a correct answer. Just sometimes it's uh-oh. That was close. Sometimes it's just not within our grasp to have it with certainty, with enough evidence and all that kind of crap. So we have to take best guesses at it. But I'd certainly argue that we do have enough information in most all the cases to make a reasonably good best guesses. I was looking down there and I saw something, but I don't see it now. So cool. Anyway, I'm just not right. Anyway, planting trees and such. So, yeah, that's probably enough of a video. Sorry for the lot of noise around here. I don't know why these people are so damn noisy. I gotta stop doing that. Yeah, I live in these nice neighborhoods. I let their workers make all that noise. Jeez. Stupid. Now I gotta find a place for these work. Inside the fence, outside the fence. I think outside's the way to go. But I'm trying a couple of places and see what happens. See what the deers do. And such. So anyway, till next time. And yeah, that's enough. Totally.